Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public information, nonpartisan program designed to get you acquainted with the candidates running in the 2024 primary election for Salem City Mayor, Salem City Council, Marion County Commissioner, and Polk County Commissioner. These interviews were created by Capital Community Media with assistance from the American Association of University Women and League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. All candidates were invited to participate, and all but one chose to do so. Candidates did not receive the questions prepared by the League of Women Voters in advance. Candidates were invited to prepare a 2-minute opening covering their background and qualifications for the office, and a 2-minute closing. I'm Alice LaViolette with the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties, and I would like to introduce Michael Hoselton, who is running for Councilor of Ward 5. Candidate Hoselton, welcome, and we look forward to your opening remarks.
Thank you for having me, Alice. As you said, I'm Michael Hoselton. I'm a lifelong Oregonian. I lived most of my life in Clackamas, and then I moved to Salem on March 1st, 2020. It was a very exciting time for me. I was a new job in a new city. I was excited to make new friends. It took me about 3 weeks to get fully unpacked, and then the world ended, which was less than convenient, but we did get through it. After I'd been in Salem for about a year, I bought a house in Northeast Salem, and I got involved in politics because my neighbor showed up with a bag of cherries and a problem he wanted to solve. Our street is a convenient bypass between Portland Road and Silverton Road, and years ago there was a barrier that kept people from using it as a shortcut. And someone who lived there was friends with the city councilor, and they didn't like that. They wanted the shortcut. So they talked to their friend and they managed to get it removed. And ever since then, people have been speeding just nonstop through it. And so I said, let's get a petition together. Let's ask the city to put in speed bumps. And we did that. We got everyone on the street to sign it. And then we asked ourselves, well, now what? And my friend said, well, one of the people who signed up is the president of the neighborhood association. So we took it there and we got them to meet with the city officials, and they had us do tests, and they put in sensors, and they didn't want to do it. But we kept pushing them for over a year and a half, and eventually we got speed bumps on our street, 3 of them, and on 2 other streets that had similar problems. And before the speed bumps, we had, just in the short time I'd lived there, 4 crashes of parked cars because people were going through at 50 miles an hour, and there's this little curve, and only one of those drivers was drunk. So that's how I got involved in local politics.
Thank you. That's a story. So thank you for your introduction. And now I'm going to go to our first question. Many residents may not understand the role of council members. Why should they be interested in this race?
Well, municipal elections are what really matters. I mean, the big national fights are over all of these cultural and political and economic wars that probably nobody's going to win. But the local elections are about how our government is run, and it makes a big difference in our lives. Oregon is a very high-tax state. It's the 4th most expensive in the country, and that's not geography, it's politics. It's decisions and trade-offs that our politicians have made right here at the local level. Very few people participate in municipal elections, especially in Ward 5. We have one of the lowest voter registration and lowest voter participation rates in the whole city. There's about 20,000 people who live in Ward 5, and the last councilor election was decided by about 1,100 people. Your vote will never matter more than it does in these kind of elections because you have the highest voting weight. And it's your property taxes, it's your zoning, it's your streets, it's your schools, it's your infrastructure.
Thank you very much for that answer. Our next question is, how would you work on communication and outreach to local groups and institutions to improve collaboration concerning shared issues and problems?
A good politician is a bridge builder, and I'm already going to these groups. I've been on the Neighborhood Association board for 3 years now, and we invite people all of the time to come talk to us. And there's always city officials there that they can talk to, too. I went to an event called Union de Libertad. That's a Get Out the Vote organization founded by the the owner of the Salem Business Journal, to get more Latinos to register to vote and participate in politics. I went to the Be Black Foundation's Black History Month presentation at McKay High School. There are all of these groups all over Salem, and the real sad thing is hardly any of them are talking to each other. A few of them, like the organizers, are friends with organizers with other ones, and so they kind of talk. But for the most part, they don't. And we don't have city councilors who are going to all of these events and building those bridges. And it's kind of hard to find where they are. You know, there isn't a unified website to say where these events are. I'm following like 150 different pages on Instagram just to figure out what's going on in the city.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, the City Council has acknowledged homelessness as a critical issue in our community.
Mm-hmm.
What are some new proposals to address the needs of the unsheltered?
Well, the city has improved a lot in just the short time I've been here in terms of the number of shelters. But shelters, the current model is called shelter first, or housing first. Just if you have enough beds, they hope the problem will go away. But there are hundreds of homeless people in our city, and that means there's hundreds of reasons that each of those people is homeless, and they each need an individualized solution. And the way you do that is you make services available for them. You get them in the shelters, but once they're there, you need to make sure they have access to nonprofits and the county and state and federal organizations that can get them what they need, whether that's mental health care, whether that's addiction services or rehab, whether it's occupational program to get trained for a new job, or if it's just someone to shepherd them through the process of getting onto a voucher program or another aid program. Because a lot of people who are homeless, the fastest growing group is people 55 plus, and a lot of them, their problem is simply they're on a fixed income, they're on a social security that's shrinking, and they can't afford rent anymore. And there are places for them. There's wait lists. There's not enough places for them, but there are places where they can get $400 a month apartments, and then they can live independently and with dignity. So we need to expand those and partner with more organizations to do that.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, how have city building codes been altered, especially concerning permitting processes, and what is middle housing?
Middle housing?
Middle housing.
I'm not familiar with that term.
Okay.
And I will be the first to admit that I am not a builder, and I am not familiar with all of the intricacies of the permitting process and the building code. I've been kind of adjacent to that in my professional work as a paralegal. I spent a few years at a firm that worked with a lot of businesses, but that wasn't exactly part of it. What I do know is that the people who do that tell me the planning department is the biggest obstacle. It is full of paperwork. It is very slow to get the job done. Sometimes a project that they expected a turnaround of 90 days to get approval turns into 9 months. And in Oregon, generally, we have a system that is very friendly to a neighbor jumping up and down and saying, I want to stop this project because it's going to interrupt my view. And there can be a seemingly endless appeals process that happens there. And we need to streamline that. The council has made some measures trying to do that, and I don't think they've been very successful yet, but it's a work in progress and one that I would like to continue.
Thank you for your thoughtful answer. What are some of your top priorities and strategies listed in Salem's recently adopted Climate Action Plan?
I hate the Climate Action Plan because it is a wish list of things that we have no ability to accomplish, much less influence. Like, one of the things on there is all of the goods that are transported to all of the stores in Salem only come in on electric trucks. There are currently no commercial electric trucks to do that. And Salem doesn't manufacture electric trucks. We don't have a battery manufacturer or any high-tech designers, so we just have to hope that that will come through. And it also hopes that the 25% of Salem workers who don't live here will turn into telecommuters. But, you know, a lot of those people don't work in offices where you can work remotely. A lot of them work in grocery stores or gyms or wherever, where they need to physically be present in the city. So I would like to see the Climate Action Plan drastically pared down. Lots of it just chopped out as things that we can talk to the state about as our priorities when we talk with our legislators. But I want us to focus on real achievable goals. I would like us to expand bike lanes on roads that are already wide enough to do them. There's no good north-south or east-west route where you can go from one edge of Salem to the other on a bike lane without having to go into traffic, especially downtown where they encourage you to go into traffic, which is terrifying, or onto a sidewalk. And the current plan that the city is doing to make people use mass transit and bikes more is just making it uncomfortable to own a car. This is partly a mandate from the state, where for each new housing unit, they want 1/4 of a parking spot, I think is the end goal, which is not enough parking, obviously. But you need to make it so that people can change to bicycles or buses. And I think we can make it more comfortable. I would also like to expand our tree planting program. We have a wonderful tree planting program, but it has very little focus on residential properties, and that is a huge chunk of the city. My house has 3 beautiful pine trees that are 60 feet tall. And a few years ago, when we had the 120-degree day, I turned my air conditioning up to 80 degrees to be a responsible citizen and not waste energy. And my house never got to 80 degrees. It stopped at 78 because I had the shade and the microclimate created by the trees. We can save a lot of energy just by planting trees and sequester a lot of carbon. And those are nice, achievable local goals.
Thank you for that. Our next question is, when you research issues important to the city, how do you prepare and what resources do you use?
Oh, there are endless number of resources to get things. As a paralegal, I'm very familiar with all the kinds of public databases. It really depends on the issue. As a paralegal, I like to joke it's my job to know everything, but in practice that means it's my job to know how to learn anything on the fly using open public resources. So there's no concise answer to that question, but there's many, many bookmarks.
Thank you. Our next question is, what decisions should be made about how our city infrastructure features?
Well, we need a more beautiful city. I mean, we're the capital, we should be shining, but we're kind of just chasing problems and putting Band-Aids on them. For a very long time, the city's plan for infrastructure is we'll pass a bond, we'll get a bunch of things that people want right now, and we'll hope that there will be enough money when this bond expires to pass a new bond to maintain our infrastructure and build new stuff. And you can look anywhere in the city and see that a lot of infrastructure is crumbling. There's a current project where they're asking for public comment on where we need repaired and infilled sidewalks. And there's a map, you can look at it online. It's practically the whole city. There is no way with the funds available we're going to be able to do that. So we need to get our budget under control, and we need to start having long-term plans that includes maintenance costs for our existing infrastructure. And hopefully someday we can afford some beautiful statues or something.
Thank you. Our last question is, discuss urban renewal areas, the process by which they are determined, and how does that relate to our tax rolls?
Well, this came up at the most recent city council meeting because they did preliminary approval for a new urban renewal area right over there on the north side of downtown, which is a good idea. But the way they sold it is this is not going to reduce any money for the general fund. It's not going to affect the library or the police or the fire department, and that's just not true. What they do is they freeze the property taxes. So the nominal amount doesn't change. $1,000 today is going to be $1,000 in 2048, but $1,000 is going to pay for a lot less. What the urban renewal district is supposed to do is kind of capture all of the increases in value and pour it directly into that. And that means it takes it from other tax units that would get it, like the school district or the county or any kind of special water district, what have you. And then all that money goes into a bank account where it's supposed to be spent on urban renewal projects. That's when, for the most part, it's when a developer comes in and they say, I've got a $5 million project, but I'm $750,000 short. And then the city says, okay, we've got this money in the urban renewal district. I think that is a good idea for the new area they're proposing. I am concerned about it because we have such a large operational budget deficit, and this is not going to help with it. But that is a prime real estate area right on the river, and it's full of decrepit old buildings from when it was an industrial area decades ago. And it can really bring in a lot of property value that eventually will come out of the urban renewal district. It could bring a lot of new housing, a lot of new shopping, and a lot of new jobs.
Thank you very much. Thank you and now it's time for you to share your 2-minute closing comments about your goals for this office and tell our viewers again how they can contact you.
Thank you. You can reach me at my website. That's michaelforsalem.org. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's Hoselton I try to be the cool city council candidate. And my number one goal is balancing the budget without raising taxes. Last year, we defeated the payroll tax 82-18, and people from all walks of life voted against that, from retirees who wouldn't be directly affected by it, to very liberal people who love taxes and every year say, I like paying taxes because it pays for services. We turned it down because everyone is feeling squeezed from inflation and because it was very poorly written. It would have driven out money from the budget in the long term by scaring off investment and workers and companies. So we need a plan that voters will approve of because democracy really does matter. And the voters have spoken. Measures 5 and 50, which some people blame for our operational problems, are not going away either because those help stabilize rent and they prevented everyone's property taxes from going up 50% in 2020 because housing prices skyrocketed. I think it's really achievable to balance the budget without taxes because I've read the budget and it says that we have and bring in more money than we're spending. It also says that the operational deficit of $15 million is only 2% of our total expenses. And I think we've all had times in our lives when we've needed to tighten the belt, and we should be so lucky that that happened because we were spending 2% too much. My other priorities are the homelessness issues, which I've talked about, and the climate action plan. And I want Salem to be a friendly, attractive place to do business. And the council hasn't done all that much in the last 10 or so years to accomplish that. When you do that, you bring in jobs, hopefully high-paying jobs, and you bring in economic stability because success follows success. And there's no reason Salem, our capital, shouldn't be successful.
Thank you very much for your interview today and for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
And thank you to Capital Community Media for their help with the technology and production used to create this program. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties for the design and preparation of the program. And thanks to you for watching in order to become a more informed voter. For more local, state, and national nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot measures, visit the League's website, vote411.org, after April 15th, when candidate data will be uploaded. You have until April 30th to register to vote or update your registration. Ballots go out on May 1st. They need to be postmarked by or on May 21st to be counted. Elections matter. Remember to vote, because your vote counts.